Welcome to the Abundant Life Family Podcast. I'm Bill.
And I'm Jen.
We're the Hildebrands. We're helping to build families that last. Today we have Doug Geiger on with us, and we're talking about how we can communicate love through our love languages. Doug, it is so great to have you here with us today. In fact, I need you. I need your help. My wife and I were walking through a past conflict just this morning and recognizing it's pretty unresolved. It's kind of raw still. And it's really my fault. It goes back to spring break and we went somewhere with our kids and conflict broke out, but I didn't step in to help solve it, to help mediate, to do anything. I guess I grew up with the thought, my family would always avoid conflict. So I avoid conflict. And so the language I was using was absentee language, not even being there, not helping a bit. And I'm thinking, I'm not adding fuel to the fire. I'm probably helping this situation.
And I'm in the middle of the conflict with our two sons. And I keep looking over at Bill like, is he going to engage in this at all? Doesn't he have something that he needs? Like he should be stepping in about now. So
the language I was using was ineffective,
Right.
One thing that we learned in Kenya when we were on living there for missions is people translate the Bible into other people's original language, their heart language, the language they grew up with. Because even though they may understand several other languages, they understand most completely from their heart language. And so even though I thought they might be understanding my language of just staying out of it.
What he was saying to me was he didn't care.
That was the message that she connected with and gained from this. So how can we communicate better? Surely there's people listening to this that, we've all been there. We need to learn to communicate so that other people can hear.
Yeah. So just like being missionaries, you go to a foreign place, you have your own language that you speak. And they have their own language that you speak, but you love them so much that you want to connect with them. So what do? You learn their language to be able to connect with their hearts and connect with them personally.
Yeah. And I know it's really important. And we've learned over the years that, even the way we communicate is different, and how I respond to how Bill communicates with me is different, and how each of our four boys and how we communicate with them. Each of them is very different. And now that I have my beautiful daughter-in-laws, learning how to communicate well with specifically them, I think it's definitely something worth really learning and honing in on. So thank you for coming and sharing with us about the 5 love languages.
Absolutely.
In fact, it wasn't that long ago we had a marriage conference and you came up with the teaching, really, the whole plan of the 5 love languages to present to people. And not everybody got to see that. So now they're going to get to see a little bit of what was involved in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what do you mean 5 love languages?
Okay, so 5 love languages. So if you think about how you start off with somebody, you fall in love with them, right? And so there's this feeling that you get with them. Okay, so don't always need all that communication and everything because you've got that feeling, right? So as time goes on, and Gary Chapman talks about over 2 years, the period of 2 years, that feeling can go on. So the next thing is what we have to do is we have to have an attitude of love. But it's an attitude. It's something that I choose every day to do.
And you mentioned Gary Chapman, and he's the author of the 5 love languages, and it's a book that we can go through.
And he's saying he's sold over 20 million copies of this. So, and he says it grows every year. He sells more and more copies every year. So people
Yeah.
are really wanting to learn
Yeah, it's powerful.
the secrets of how to communicate better with their spouses or even their children or even friends or coworkers. Or
Right. Right.
So these 5, so I think it's like we have an emotional need, to connect with somebody. So with that connecting with somebody, we all have within us the need to feel loved too, as well. So Gary Chapman came up with these 5, and they're biblical too. That on top of that, these are biblical things. So if you go through the first one, Gary Chapman talks about the 5 major love languages, and the first one is words of affirmation. Right?
Okay.
So that's, to build somebody up. And he says in 1 Corinthians 8:1, he goes, love builds up. So as we, talk to our spouse or friends or our children, we want to, build them. It's kind of like coaching. If you have a good coach in basketball, they're going to say, hey, you did this well. You did this well. But also, building people up can be what Pastor Phil would say is being kind, is giving them love in ways that builds them up through teaching as well. Yeah, exactly. And then the next one is gifts. So, and it's not just something that is, something expensive that you're going to be
like the
giving
big
to
diamond ring
Yes.
or the new car parked out front.
Oh, absolutely. So it doesn't have to be
It doesn't
expensive
have
at
to
all.
be that way.
It has to come right here from the heart.
I
So
love
those
that.
gifts, right? So Ephesians 5, what's that? It's the greatest gift of all is what, Christ loved the church, right? So, as husbands, we're supposed to follow how Christ loved the church, loving our spouse.
And he loved the church in such a way he laid down his life for the church.
Greatest
So as
gift.
husbands, we need to lay down our lives. What's that look like, to lay down your life?
Yeah. So for the greatest gift is like, it is like having that attitude of, I am going to sacrifice everything that I am for my spouse.
Yeah.
Right, and give to them and build them up. It's like, I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. So if you are doing well, I'm doing well. It's growing the whole family, and it's it builds that confidence too, so that we could all grow together with this through words of affirmation and the gifts.
I know that one of the most meaningful gifts that Bill has ever given to me was we had been dating for a little over a year. And, I was this poor college student working 3 different jobs. And I had mentioned to him one day that I loved these white tennis shoes with this black rubber going around the bottom of it. But they were so expensive that there was no way I would ever be able to afford those.
Yes.
And he, heard that. And then he went to like a really inexpensive shoe store and got this black marker and literally detailed the rubber around it. And it really, truly looked like, and then he put it in a box and he talked about the importance of, having beautiful feet, that we go out and we share the gospel. And then he presented that gift to me and it cost him maybe $10, but I remember that we've been married 32 years this summer. And so that, you're right, it has to come from the heart.
Yes.
And so I think that just made a big impact on me. So
that was a beautiful gift. And I love that story. There was one thing that happened to me, in Abundant Life Kids. I'm sitting there and, each week you just wonder if you contribute, to these children. And this child came up to me and it was just this little bitty piece of paper. And he gives it to me, says, "You're the best." And that's all it said on it. Guess where that piece of paper is? Yeah. Right on my refrigerator.
Absolutely.
And I see it every day. And I remember his face giving it to me. So I'm like, he gave that to me, but that gift was him giving that to me, but it meant so much to me. And it, keeps me wanting to do what I want to do then.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next one that Gary Chapman talks about are acts of service. And in 1 John 3:18, it says, love not in talk, but in deed. So it's like, what we do and what we say, it matters, right? So just serving others, just like husbands. I mean, you can vacuum, you can cook, you can do all of these things to serve.
I have all these allergies.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to those things. I can't
Oh, geez.
I can't cook. I can't vacuum.
Oh, he does. And he does all those things. He's being silly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just trying to think. There may be people who are. No, okay. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But we all have excuses, but you're saying go beyond the excuses, right?
Oh, beyond the excuses.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it goes back to that attitude, attitude of serving others.
Yeah.
You know, like we go back to Ephesians 5 too, serving our spouse, you know, is one of the greatest things that we can give to them to build them up. And it's all through humility and being humble is the next part about it, is like having that attitude.
The humility.
Being humble.
Bill asked me, it was a few years ago, and I think I've mentioned it before, but one of the most powerful things, Bill knows that one of my gifts is acts of service. And so he actually asked me, he's like, what is it that would really speak your love language? Like, what can I do? And I just kind of said, well, when I go to bed at night, I hate having a dirty kitchen. I said, just make sure all the dishes are put in the dishwasher and the counters are wiped off. And he has done that for years. He took it to heart. And when I'm really mad at him, sometimes I think about that. I'm like, well, he does clean up my kitchen. So it's
how
powerful.
Does that make you feel?
Yeah.
It was kind of like in the movie Princess Bride.
Yeah.
Every time the guy says, as you wish, he's saying, I love you. And so when I do something, it is to say, I love you.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's very tangible because, he comes to bed, he's tired, but he makes sure those dishes are put away and the counters are wiped off. And it means the world to me.
And the coffee's made. Don't forget the coffee. We got to make the coffee.
And make the coffee. And it does. It speaks my love language.
Yes.
It says, I love you. So, yeah.
I love that. Good job.
Well,
he does a great job.
So there are words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation.
Gifts. And then acts of service.
Acts of service.
Is that the three that we've covered so far?
So,
yes.
And so the next one is quality time.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. So quality time is when you can sit down with somebody, you put all your electronics away. Just put all your electronics away and you're going to speak to them, right? So it could even...
I can't just keep my phone out.
No.
When it vibrates or buzzes, I can just...
No, put it away.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the worst things that you could do is if you're even talking to your children and your phone rings and you go, hang on a second, I've got to take this. And you take that in front of your children. What message are you sending to them? Right? That this phone, this little square thing in front of me is more important than our time together. Right?
Yeah.
And they just want that time. Our spouses just want that time with us. Yeah.
Yeah. Even just having our computers open on our laps, just checking emails or, whatever. If we're having a conversation, I always feel like, number one, there's like a little shield, a little bit of a wall between us. And then I feel like I'm distracted. Even though we're talking, it's still not the same than when I set that laptop aside and we're looking at, there's no boundaries, there's not a wall. It does make a difference.
That connection, that, looking straight in the eyes and making that connection. Well, another thing is Jesus had his 12 disciples, right? So that quality time, he spent a lot of time with them and building them up and teaching them so that they could reproduce themselves as well, right? So it is about teaching and building them up too. So that quality time with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pretty good at that, I think I really enjoy time with you or time together and you come up with those things, whether it's a walk in the morning, prayer time together, or getting a ride together today to hear.
That's right.
We normally don't get to ride together.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just, if you don't know what your spouse wants, like quality time, like just ask. Like that was so powerful when Bill asked me, like, what can I, like, if you're a clueless spouse, which sometimes we are, just asking the question to them will give you the answer and then just act on that. So,
you brought up something really good. Is if people are struggling with that quality time, you wouldn't think that you would struggle with that, but some people do. And you could be sitting around across them. One of the things you could do is like, what are 3 things that happened to you today that were important to you? right? Or 3 things that even could have been better for you. Just asking those questions, and then you're learning about them. Each step of the way, you're learning more and more about them.
That's so good, because you're asking them questions about their heart and what's going on. And then that gives the spouse the opportunity to hear from her heart. But what that would say to me is, if you're sitting there listening to me and looking at me, that's so powerful that you asked, I'm getting to respond, and then to see you looking at me and responding, that's powerful.
Absolutely.
So quality time isn't always just going and doing something. It really is just even having that deeper conversation and asking some real good heart questions. That's good.
Yeah. So it's saying to me, it's like, I want to learn more about you. And oh, by the way, that person wants to learn more about me too. So it's even that more connection, and it just builds up your confidence, builds up all of these things, just to make your relationship that much better. Well, the 5th one that we have is physical touch. So physical touch, and to me, I have a story when I was growing up, and I had anxiety a lot. It was hard for me for my mother to get me to go to sleep. So what she would do at me as a young boy, she would set me down and cradle me, and then she would just rub around on my face. And that was just so soothing, right? So physical touch for me, is important, is that soothing portion of it. And so in Mark 10, it was talking about Jesus, and he did a lot of touching. He healed a lot of people. Right. And so, I mean, that obviously that was very important for him to do too. So physical touch along those lines.
And I love it when even if Bill and I are just walking across the parking lot, going into the office, or we're sitting in church, just, holding my hand, putting his arm around me, just that connection, that physical connection speaks volumes. So sometimes we just think physical touch is, it's sex or, something more, but it's as simple as, putting your hand, just that physical connection speaks powerful.
Absolutely. And if you're having trouble with that, just the next walk that you take for that quality time with your spouse, grab her hand. Right. And just, or put your arm around her or whatever it is. And so you're going to find out what their love languages are just by testing things.
That's a great thing. How do I figure out what my love languages are?
So I brought these books.
Okay.
Right. So these are, Gary Chapman wrote these books, Love Languages. And one of them is, the book. Also, there's a workbook that goes with it too. So if as you're reading through it, it gives you tips, tricks on, how to improve your love language with your spouse. And if you go out to his website, I think it's 5languages.com. 5lovelanguages.com. Sorry. You go out there, he's got this assessment that you can take that will point out what your love language is. And so that you learn what your own is, you learn what your spouse's is as they take it too. But another way that you can do, just ask them. You had said that before. Just have those conversations. And other ways that you could do is just observe them. So do they touch a lot? Do they like spending time with other people? They'll just through observation, they will tell you what their love languages are. And then another thing I say is take one love language a week and practice that one, right? Quality time. So spending quality time with the person. Acts of service. So serving that person for another week. Third week, give gifts, right? And during that time, you're going to see what your spouse, what brightens them up.
I think we need to start that this week.
All right.
That sounds wonderful. I love that idea.
Absolutely. And just through pure observation, here's the other thing is, after those 5 weeks are done, even if you just found out one of their love languages, you've improved, the way that you give service and all of that. But you've also you having that attitude of giving and giving, how can I find out more about you?
Going back to that opening story, let's say my love language, I know I've recognized is quality time, but let's say that's one of the lowest on her list. I'm not saying it is, but let's say it was one of the lowest, but that's what I try to speak to you is the one that I crave, the one that speaks to me. And I keep trying to speak to you with that language, but to you it's meaningless because that's not your love language.
It would still speak to me, but maybe not to the
much.
level of my true love language.
It was kind of like that story where I thought if I just back out and I'm not being involved in the conflict, then I'm helping you guys because I'm not escalating. I'm trying to de-escalate by taking away the fuel for the fire and all that kind of stuff. But it really wasn't helping at all.
Right.
And so I can help you if I study you and learn your love languages and then try to speak to you in those love languages, like
for sure.
gifts. I've known for years. But how often do I remember to give you a nice little gift just as I was looking, I was thinking of you.
Well, today's a good reminder.
It is a great reminder. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And the taking the time, but also the resources that we can use and continue to sharpen our relational skills. Can I close in prayer?
Absolutely.
All right, Lord, thank you so much for bringing us together today and being able to talk about how to communicate with those we love the most. So I pray that you'll just sharpen those skills. Help us to work on those. Help me to work on the ones we talked about just now. And thank you for loving us and not giving up on us, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Abundant Life Family Podcast. If you found this helpful for your family, hit like and subscribe below. And feel free to drop a comment or question below. To learn more about the Abundant Life Family Ministry and the 10-mile markers to help you win at building families that last, go to our website at livingproof.co/family.